Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Career Choice Series webinar on trust and estate planning. The Career Choice Series is designed to help you choose your career path. Whether you're a law student, young lawyer, or transitioning attorney, find out what it's like to work in various practice areas and the best way to position yourself to get there. The Career Choice Series is brought to you by ABA Legal Career Central, the Law Student Division, Young Lawyers Division, and the Real Property Trust and Estate Law section. The Real Property Trust and Estate Law section is a leading national forum for lawyers and currently has around 22,000 members. It consists of two divisions, the Real Property Division, which focuses on legal aspects of property use, ownership, development, transfer, regulation, financing, taxation, and disposal, as well as the Trust and Estate Division, which focuses on all aspects of trusts, estate planning, employee benefits, insurance, and probate and trust litigation. The Young Lawyers Division is here to help new lawyers navigate the early years of their career and law students prepare for life after law school. The newly enhanced ABA Legal Career Central is a career center that offers a robust source of career development resources and connects legal professionals across all disciplines and career stages with employers offering career opportunities. The Law Student Division has just introduced premium benefits, which includes a savings of $250 on Barbary Bar Review, $25 off West Academic Casebooks, and a legal ethics bundle that includes a free Model Rules of Professional Conduct ebook. Upgrade to premium for $25. Sign up today at abaforlawstudents.com/go-premium. Today's moderator is Liz Stone, Managing Director of the Dubin Group, a legal search firm based in the Bay Area. She is a former litigator and currently performs stand-up comedy at clubs throughout the country. She is a board member of ABA Legal Career Central. Liz, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Emily, and thanks everyone for attending today. I'd like to introduce our panel that we have today. Today we have Chasity Grice, who is an attorney at Peppel, Gomes, and MacIntosh in Memphis, Tennessee. Chasity focuses on the area of probate and estate planning, and she's also an adjunct professor at the University of Memphis, where she teaches family law and estates, trust, and probate law. Previously, Chasity had her own law practice in probate, estate planning, and family law. Prior to working in law firms, Chasity worked for certified public accounting firms where she focused in estate planning for middle to high net worth families. We also have J.P. Lee, a shareholder at Sojourner, Caughman, and Thomas in Columbia, South Carolina. J.P. is a certified specialist in estate planning and probate law by the Supreme Court of South Carolina. He advises clients regarding the transition of wealth to beneficiaries and helps clients achieve their personal, business, and charitable planning objectives. He served as a chairman of the Columbia Taxation Study Group, president of the Richland Library Friends, and currently serves as a member of the board of directors of Kappa Alpha Order Row Chapter Housing Corporation, the board of directors of the Richland Library Foundation, and is a vice chancellor of the Episcopal Diocese of Upper South Carolina. Thank you so much, Chasity and JP, for being here. I'd like to start by talking to you about just an overview of your practice and hear about the work that you do in trust and estate planning. Chasity, can you tell us about your work?
Sure, and before I get started, I want to thank you again for having me participate in this series, which I think is very important. I graduated from University of Tennessee College of Law in 2004, and I identified very early on during my law school career that I wanted to practice in the trust and estates area. So what I did as a law student was focus my studies outside of the core curriculum to transactional tax planning and trust and estates curriculum primarily. I clerked then during law school with a firm in Knoxville where I worked for partners and some of the associates who only practiced in that area. Initially was not quite sure if that was the way that I wanted to go, but by the end of the summer I loved the complexities and the interesting stories and families that we were able to meet and help in this area. So since graduating from law school, I did not start out at a law firm. I actually started out at a CPA firm where I worked in Dallas, Texas for a partner who was also an attorney but also a CPA. And in working for that firm, my responsibilities included developing estate plans for families. Basically would entail several businesses, family businesses, of course, and family limited partnerships, and it would even stretch so far as filing estate tax returns for those families upon the death of particular individuals. And so I started out with a little bit of a different um, experience in the estate and trust world. I started out learning the tax effects, so to speak, the end results of the estate planning process. Although I did not draft the documents at that time, what my responsibility was included was developing the plan and working with other attorneys who would draft the documents, draft the estate planning documents to mirror basically the plan that I would develop. So it was a very interesting perspective, and it gave me a good understanding of the end result of why we're drafting documents for our clients and what the purposes are. And then also the negative aspects of what happens if we don't do it properly. So I did that for about 4 years, and at that time I decided to open my own practice where I then became more transactional and actually started to do more drafting of the estate plans. And I've done that ever since. I have transitioned from my own practice to Peppel, Gomes, and MacIntosh, a firm here in Memphis, Tennessee, where I continue to draft estate plans for families, but I also do practice in the area of probate litigation, which includes developing and administering conservatorships and guardianships, as well as decedents' estates.
Great, thank you. And JP, can you give us a broad overview of the work that you do in this area?
Sure. Also, thank you for allowing me to participate. All of my practice is in trust and estates. When I say that, it's a broad practice, though. About half of that is involving what we would call pre-death estate planning, and the other half would be sort of post-death routine estate administration or other issues that might come up in a post-death sort of context. The pre-death estate planning covers the gamut from everything from drafting wills, trusts, powers of attorney, healthcare powers of attorney, dealing with issues of business succession planning, sales, gifts to beneficiaries, children, spouses, life insurance trust, creating entities, revising certain entities that might already be in existence, such as LLCs or corporations or partnerships or things like that. We do this for clients that are new to our firm and also clients with whom we've had a previous relationship. Oftentimes, some years down the road, few years down the road, 3, 4, 10 years, maybe longer, they'll come and we need to revise work that we did previously based upon changing circumstances or changing tax law. My firm setting is is 4 other lawyers other than me, so a 5-person boutique trust and estate setting. At the beginning of my practice, I was in a medium firm setting, and I've also been in a big firm setting. A little bit of the uniqueness is, and throughout all of those settings, the 5 lawyers with whom, or the 5 of us, the 4 other lawyers with whom I practice now, we were as a group in all those settings. We originally were in a medium-sized firm of about 35 lawyers. That firm merged to a national firm with about 450 lawyers. And then we decided that the boutique setup was going to be a better fit for our practice. On the post-death
Great, and that actually
sure.
leads us to the next topic, which is career path and the key to breaking in. And JP, if you could just tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now, just from law school to here, how you ended up in this area.
Sure. I was an economics major in college and a psychology minor. Always found money and emotions to be very interesting. In college, I wasn't sure if I was going to be a school psychologist or do something in the financial field, and as luck would have it, I got a summer job at a law firm during college, and I was really attracted to the intellectual side of that profession, all the issues that come up and the uniqueness of the day-to-days, and that's when I decided to go to law school. Very early in law school, I recognized that a litigation type practice or family law or criminal type practice was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do more of a transactional, and then I was exposed to the trust and estates field and the relationship between money and emotion and the combination of the counseling kind of trusted advisor role that a trust and estates lawyer can play was very attractive to me. So I started taking the trust and estates courses and the tax courses in law school, was fortunate enough to have a job after graduation, and went and continued and got my LLM in estate planning and have practiced in the field ever since.
Great, thank you. And Chasity, for someone who is interested in breaking into this field, do you have a few recommendations for them?
I certainly do. First and foremost, trust and estate law this area is very, very complex, and it can be a little intimidating. It was for me, very similar to JP. I identified very early on that this is the area that I wanted to practice, but it didn't come naturally, so to speak. It came in reference to my first clerkship, where I mentioned earlier I worked for some partners and associates who primarily worked in the estate and trust area, and I thought I hated it, to be honest. The first month I thought, this is the most complicated, convoluted area of law I've ever heard of. And then by the end of the summer I thought it was appealing and I enjoyed it, and it was a puzzle to me, and I enjoy puzzles, so to speak. I was an English major in college, actually. So I thought that I had no desire to litigate. All I wanted to do was transactional work, and as I've said earlier, my practice transitioned to a combination of transactional work and probate litigation, which I enjoy very much. Getting into this area, the best piece of advice I could give is to identify very early on, as best as you can, if this is what you want to do. If you think you want to practice in this area and are not sure, the best way to start is to work for a firm who primarily focuses in this area. It is very difficult to try to identify this area of law as your primary area if you are doing various other things. And I found that it is certainly my career has become much more successful, and I've excelled more when I focused in the area, not when I was attempting to practice in trust and estate planning and do other things. So I would say, if this is the path that you'd like to take, whether you do what I did, which is start at a CPA firm and transition, or whether you do what JP did and start at a firm, either way is a great way to start. The best place to do it, though, or the best time, I should say, is at the moment you decide this is what you want to do. Then from that point on, focus your life, your career on this area.
Great, thank you. And Chasity, can you give us a brief overview about what your day is like and what your work consists of?
Sure. So as I said before, my practice consists of a combination of transactional planning as well as the probate litigation. So I'll start with the probate litigation because that's the more, I guess that's the more time-consuming part of my day. I will spend in an average week possibly 2 days, maybe 3 sometimes, in court in the mornings, dealing with various estates, and that could include contested motions in reference to an estate administration. Now, when I say this, I'm referencing post-death instances. In other words, someone has passed away and now the estate has to be administered pursuant to probate court, which means that even in the estate planning process, something was left out, or there was something that was not planned for prior to the death of the decedent, such that now we have to deal with probate court in order to administer that estate. And so I spend quite a bit of time doing that. And what that entails sometimes would be a will contest. It could be in reference to contested heirships. There could be long lost children or alleged children that lead us into litigation. And that's the fun part. It really is. I enjoy it very much, but it is also very time consuming. And so I will spend a good part of my week with those sorts of cases. The other part of my week, very briefly, I would spend is actually drafting the estate plan. So that's the pre-death planning that JP referenced earlier. That's when you sit down with your clients and you're consulting them and having a conference with them about what it is their long-term goals are for their family and also for themselves, and actually turning that into a real plan that works.
Great, thank you. And JP, can you tell us about a day in your life with your practice?
Sure. It involves a lot of talking with different people. They can be the clients, advisors, other professionals, a lot of meeting and talking with them. Again, clients and referral sources, writing a lot of letters, emails, drafting documents, revising documents that have been drafted, spending time monitoring deadlines. That's more so on the estate administration side, but we might have some deadlines, some tax filings that need to be filed by a certain time, or probate court things. A lot of time is spent keeping my staff engaged, making sure that they are motivated and tasks are being delegated to them that they can do, that makes work that is on my desk stuff that is only that the attorney can do. So I would say that a successful day is really one that's kind of balancing doing the work that I have, taking steps to get future work from different folks or referral sources, monitoring staff, keeping them engaged and productive, dealing with the other issues of running a law firm, such as budgeting, collecting payroll, making sure the bills are paid, etc. And then also volunteering in the community. I think trust and estates lawyers are very generally, as a nature, very generous with our time. And so I think
great.
Your day might have some of the volunteering of the community in there as well.
Thank you so much. And moving on to the next slide, JP, can you tell me one thing that you love about your practice and one challenge that you face?
One thing that I love about the practice is that if you are a student of the human condition, this is a great practice area. I dare say that you will have few better opportunities to meet and talk with and really get intimate conversations with successful people and hear their interesting and fascinating stories. That is very interesting, intellectually stimulating, and to see successful people, however you might define success, financially or a strong family or whatever, however you might define success, it's interesting to be able to talk to them and hear their stories. Some of the things that are challenging, a couple of things come to mind. You know, this is a practice area where generally most of your clients are individuals. They may or may not have a lot of experience in a business relationship with a lawyer. Sometimes folks, the only time they've ever dealt with a lawyer before might be on a routine sort of real estate transaction, and so it's getting them to kind of understand how a lawyer might charge takes a little bit of education. And then another challenge outside of our control is really the law changes in this area, frankly, somewhat quickly, particularly the tax law, and staying on top of that takes some dedication and education.
Great. And Chasity, can you tell us one thing you love and one challenge that you face?
Well, without sounding redundant, I love some of the very same things that JP referenced. I love just talking to people, and I do, along with JP, and I agree that in this area we spend a lot of time in the community. I am always, I spend almost monthly time educating the community, whether it's through a seminar or through some sort of event, community event, but speaking with people in my city about estate planning and about planning and getting their affairs in order for their families. So I love the conversation. I love the understanding of the relationships between your clients and their families and their friends, and developing the relationship, developing the trust, because quite frankly, the conversations we have to have in this area with our clients are very sensitive. The questions we ask, they're very intimate. And so it takes first the development of trust between myself and my clients before they're even willing to speak about some of the questions that I have, some of the concerns that I may have. So I do love the development of those relationships. I can't say that I hate. Hate is a strong word, so I can't say that I hate any particular thing, but there are some challenges. And one of those is the same thing that I love about this area is the conversation, but one of the challenges is the conversation. It's explaining to a client and helping them to understand that you're here to help and that you're not asking these intimate details just because you want to know them. I mean, most people are very private about their affairs, specifically their financial affairs. And estate planning is an emotional process, and I start my conversation with my clients with just that statement. This is an emotional process because we have to talk about a lot of things that may not be natural for us to talk about. And one of them is how you choose fiduciaries, for instance, how you decide what you want to happen with your property, which means sometimes acknowledging some very negative things about your own family. And that part is a challenge because it requires that your clients are very honest with you about intimate details of their family.
Thank you. And Chasity, what would you identify as the top 3 skills for someone to have in this practice area?
Well, I think the first skill would be the ability to have a conversation, to just have a natural conversation with people. And I know that sounds very straightforward. It seems like it should, go without saying, but it's not easy to be able to have conversations, the type of conversations that we have to have in this area without developing the skill, without learning a way of addressing sensitive issues without, being, I guess I would say, politically incorrect. You have to learn the way to speak to your clients and how to get them to acknowledge that maybe they have a child with a mental illness or maybe someone who has substance abuse problems. I mean, you have to find a way to really identify those issues tactfully. So that's the first skill. The second skill I would say is the ability to see the end result, to listen to your client, but try to find a way to understand what they ultimately want. Because sometimes they don't know what they ultimately want. They just know what their concerns are. So I think that's a good skill to learn to identify very early on how to get to your client's end result. And then finally, I think just the compassion and the love for people, and just understanding the difficulty in the process.
Great, thank you. And JP, what are the top 3 skills you would identify for this work?
I would echo a lot of what Chasity said. I would, to use a crude analogy, I think you need to be a little bit like Winston Wolfe from the movie Pulp Fiction with a nature, sort of like Mr. Rogers. If you remember the movie Pulp Fiction, he rings the doorbell and they open the door and says, "Hi, I'm Winston Wolfe and I'm here to solve problems." And we want to be a resourceful problem solver who can get things done quickly with precision. So that's a strong skill Communication is a critical one. Again, you're going to meet a lot of different people and a lot of different personalities. A widow, doctor, farmer, entrepreneur, business owner, other lawyers. Your job to be successful is be able to navigate all of those personalities. And there are a lot of different personality types. And so being able to communicate effectively to a level that generates trust in you very quickly is really the key to success. And also just being resourceful and clever. There is no way to know all there is to know about this. Be resourceful enough to know what you don't know and be able to figure out the answer. I think those are 3 top traits that would lend itself to success.
Great, thank you. And JP, what would people be surprised to know about your practice?
I think that one thing folks in this area would be surprised to know is how early in your career successful people will look to you for advice. When you don't have confidence in yourself necessarily because you haven't been doing it that long, people still look to you for advice and put a lot of trust in you early. And that's a sign of a developing practice and a good leader and an effective lawyer in this field. I also think another surprising aspect of this is how long the memory is in this practice area. Some of my best clients have come to me not immediately, not because of some marketing I did last week or last month, but because I did a good job for someone they know or heard about or something years ago, it ripened into a current client relationship. And so the long sort of memory, the long time it takes to, or the long period by which clients might come in is a surprising thing to learn, and payoff sometimes takes a little bit of time.
Thank you. And Chasity, what would people be surprised to know about your practice?
I think they'd be surprised to know the variety of clients I have. I mean, and JP said it wonderfully, that depends on how you categorize success, but you see different personalities and different family dynamics in my practice. When you have a combination of probate litigation and estate planning, then you also have a combination of a different clientele. The clientele on the trust and estate planning side versus probate litigation are totally different sometimes. Probate litigation is something I think that touches and affects everyone at least once in their life, and I read an article years ago that said that, and that at some point we all lose someone, of course, but we lose a loved one, but at some point someone experiences incidents in those losses that require a probate court. And so that brings a lot of different individuals in my practice. That would mean families with special needs children, special needs family, disabled relatives, which would be or would require the necessity of a guardianship or conservatorship, depending on which state you're in and what we call it. But the different people, I think, is what would surprise many individuals who are not familiar with this area, the different clients that you come across in this estate planning process and in the probate litigation world.
Thank you. And one final question. Chasity, how has involvement with the ABA boosted your career?
Well, that's a wonderful question. I'm going to try to sum that up in a few seconds, but it's going to be hard. I became involved with the ABA through a mentor of mine and a professor of mine from law school. And I became a fellow on the trust and estate side with RIPETY, with the Real Property Trust and Estate section. And in my involvement as a fellow, I then became included on panels and did quite a bit of research projects and articles. So it gave me a new passion in my area. I already had somewhat of a passion, obviously, because I'd been in this area for a minute, but becoming involved with the ABA put me in contact with a whole country of attorneys like me with that passion, and being involved in the conferences and learning things that you may not learn in your everyday practice. And so the ABA has significantly caused my practice to excel and create a different network of individuals to call if I have a client that needs a referral out of state, or if I have an issue that I've not dealt with before.
Great. And JP, same question to you. How has the ABA affected your career?
Echo a lot of what Chasity said. Particularly going back to the Winston Wolfe example, your clients expect the process to be as seamless as possible, as quick as possible, and having lawyers in different states to either bounce ideas off of, or in the instance where a client has an out-of-state need. For instance, you may be doing some estate planning for a client that has property out of state, or an issue out of state, or a beneficiary out of state. Having a network of lawyers committed to the same practice area at the same level which you're practicing in is incredibly helpful, because clients are expecting things to be seamless, and they value you having resources outside of your jurisdiction. Again, also, just iron sharpening iron kind of analogy, that you can benefit from the thought leaders in this practice area. There are 22,000 members in the RIPETY section. Not all of them are trust and estates lawyers. Some are real estate lawyers, obviously, but of those members, there is a lot of experience, a lot of expertise that being a member I have benefited from, and learning from them, and just hearing about what other people are doing nationally in the area is just a great way to stay on top of how this practice area changes.
Thank you. And before we wrap it up, we've got a question in for you guys, which I think is a really great question. And JP, I'll start with you. How can a young lawyer without finance or CPA background or experience become exposed to learning the tax side of estate planning?
Great question. I think that education through seminars, continuing education, is probably going to be the way to do that. Obviously, not going back to school and getting an LLM is not an option or an interest for everybody. And I will say that I think the majority of trust and estates lawyers nationwide don't have an LLM. I mean, some of the smartest trust and estates lawyers that I know in the country don't have an LLM, so I by no means think it is a necessity to practice in this area. I do think knowing something about the tax law is a necessity, and going to seminars to learn about what the issues are. The RIPETY section has monthly conference calls that are free for members, where experts will just talk about a topic that may have tax relevance. And so it would be, if you did not have experience in the area, if you didn't take the courses in law school, then obviously you're going to need to dedicate some resources to learning it. But I would offer and submit that there are a lot of inexpensive resources available, particularly through the RIPETY section, that could assist with that.
Great. And Chasity, do you have anything to add to that?
Actually, no. My answers would be the same. There are a lot of continuing education courses out there statewide. I mean, there are tons of different organizations that provide those sorts of CLEs free of charge. Sometimes it's a very minimal cost. I would participate in those. If you don't have access to a mentor, someone who practices in this area, who won't be or are rather willing to allow you to mirror them, or really just kind of understand their practice a little bit, work with them, then the best way to get that exposure is through the continuing education classes. And also participating in not just the RIPETY calls, but the tax section. They have very similar teleconferences and CLEs that are offered as well. I would participate as best as I can in those conferences, so that you could start to understand, different particular hot issues in this area of law.
Thank you. And one follow-up question that we got in is, are there any books that you would recommend to get started, or do you think taking the classes is the best way to go?
Well,
Chasity.
Okay, that's an interesting question. Um, I I am a reader. Okay, I was an English major, so I do have tons of books, but I really think that the CLEs are better to start because you have someone you can ask questions. It's just something about having that live information that sometimes will help, especially in this area, understand the subject matter better. But there are courses, excuse me, there are books that the ABA specifically has. I would also even consider some of the treatises from law school. I still reference back to them, the Trust and Estates treatise, the Wills and Estates treatise. I reference back to that sometimes when particular issues come up. But I wouldn't say take that, treatise and sit down and read it. But
Yeah.
it is a good book. One other book that I think is very good is The Tools and Techniques of Estate Planning. I don't know if JP, if you've read that book before, but I have several editions that I've purchased over the years that I reference quite frequently in my practice. But I think that you'll get more quality of education in the continuing education classes.
Got it. JP, any books that you want to add to that, or
I would echo. That sums it up. I would just briefly echo. I would echo that and briefly add that I also reference what are called BNA portfolios frequently. They are, 100-page portfolio on a particular topic of estate planning, but they have a general BNA portfolio of estate planning. And if you're looking to break into the area, it's a little bit of a long read, but it would give, I think, in 100 pages or so, a pretty comprehensive starting point for at least you would understand what the lingo is, what the difference between a revocable trust might be, say, versus a life insurance trust or something like that. And so starting with that and then actively participating in seminars or teleconferences or webinars or in-person live CLE courses, I think would be a great starting point.
And one final follow-up question. You guys referenced what I think you said, RIPETY. Can you spell that and just explain to everyone exactly what it is?
Sure. That's the Real Property Trust and Estate section of the ABA, the RPTE. We just, as a group, we just sort of call it RIPETY as a moniker more than anything. But it's the Real Property Trust and Estate section.
Thank you guys so much. That's really helpful. And thanks to both of you for sharing all this information. We really appreciate it. That wraps up the webinar. And back to you, Emily.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks for moderating. And Chasity, JP, thanks so much for all your insight and talking about your careers with us. We really appreciate it. And thanks, everyone, for attending today's webinar. Be sure to check out the ABA Legal Career Central's redesigned mobile-friendly website at www.abalcc.org for upcoming webinars. Our next Career Choice webinar is on antitrust law and consumer protection, taking place on December 2nd at 1 p.m. You can register on our website. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.